Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. We have a slightly different video today. We've got some breaking news to talk about and really dive into. And it's in regards to Novak Djokovic and Andy Murray. Now, Andy Murray is out of retirement. Now, before you get excited if you're a Murray fan, it's not as a player. He's coming back as the coach for Novak Djokovic in 2025, and he will be coaching him up until at least the end of the Australian Open. So, I mean, massive news. Two long-term rivals have come together. Andy Murray obviously retired earlier this year. He's now going to be taking up the mantle of coach for Novak Djokovic, which is huge, by the way. I mean, it's absolutely massive. And Murray said he was looking forward to spending time on the same side of the net as Novak for a change. The head-to-head between the two was 25-11 in favor of Djokovic, but Murray had won some really, really big matches against Novak, including the 2013 Wimbledon final, of course, where he won his first ever Wimbledon title and a historic moment for all of Britain. And look, I mean, it's just when I saw the news, I was completely shocked, but in a positive way, because I just think it's a really interesting kind of mesh of two phenomenal players who made up, the so-called Big Four. And some people will say no, it's a Big Three, but I think we have to put Murray in there at times when he was world number one. During the era of Novak, Rafa, and Roger. And I want to talk a little bit about how it could work well and how it might not work so well as well, and whether I think it's going to come out as a success. Obviously, it's very difficult to tell because Murray, from my knowledge anyway, hasn't coached anyone at least this closely anyway in the past, and he's been playing, of course. So he's going to be going into this, and it's going to be a very new experience for him. And obviously for Novak as well, being coached by someone as young as Andy is going to be, again, something relatively new. And also not just someone young, but also someone who knows him so well. They played juniors all the way through, of course, to 36 matches on the ATP Tour. It's going to be Murray's first coaching role. So it's going to be really interesting to see how he handles it. Novak said on X, he never liked retirement anyway. We played each other since we were boys, 25 years of being rivals, of pushing each other beyond our limits. We had some of the most epic battles in our sport. I thought our story may be over. Turns out it has one final chapter. It's time for one of my toughest opponents to step into my corner. Yeah, I mean, it's still pretty it's massive news. It is massive, massive news. Murray, just to finish off with a quote, said, "I'm going to be joining Novak's team in the offseason, helping him to prepare for the Australian Open. I'm really excited for it and looking forward to spending time on the same side of the net as Novak for a change, helping him to achieve his goals." And Djokovic then to finish off said, "I look forward to starting the season with Andy and having him by my side in Melbourne, where we've shared many exceptional moments throughout our careers." And of course, this has come since Djokovic earlier this year parted ways with Goran Ivanisevic, and they had a really fruitful and successful relationship, and it was a long time partnership. And he's been on the search, I think, for someone to replace him. So interesting that he's gone with Murray, and I think we can dive into maybe how it might look, and also why it could be a positive thing, and also why it might not be such a positive thing as well. So from my side of things, I think on the whole, I think it's very positive. I think the only caveat to this partnership, in my opinion, is Murray's lack of coaching experience, at least from what we know anyway. It's his first actual coaching role since retiring. He doesn't have a plethora of experience, and he will know a lot about the setup, the drills, the training, how to prepare, etc., because he's a three-time Grand Slam champion. He's only just retired. He's very much going to be in with, what's effective, what's not effective, the current trends, the best way to prepare, and also tactically as well, and also when it comes to the rules and the players as well, how to approach them. So in that sense, he's very fresh, and that's fantastic. But of course, he doesn't have that experience, which also means he's not going to have the experience of traveling as a coach as well. Of course, he can't really affect things on court, uh, you know, as materially as he could as a player. So he's going to be in a position of power, but also be powerless at times when it comes to watching in the stands. So it will be interesting to see how Murray handles that side of things. He was a very vocal player on court, very much wearing his emotions on his sleeve and directing it towards his box. And it'll be very interesting to see how he handles Novak doing the same thing to him, because Novak is also very emotional on court and also does tend to really voice his, whether it's positive or negative things towards his box. And, they tend to bear the brunt of things. And Murray will know what that feels like as a player and being the one to give it, but to actually be the one to receive it, and how to handle it and how to process it and how to know how to then respond or not respond, as it were. It's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out, right? And also, will Novak do that? Because they have a very friendly, right, relationship, but then so did Ivanisevic, of course, and Djokovic. But eventually, right, it does become a player-coach partnership, at least to some degree, and it will do as they spend more and more time together. So, how does Murray handle that? Because Murray is a very off court, he seems very relaxed, very witty. On court, he was, as I said, very headstrong. Wore his emotions on his sleeve, and really gave it his all. And so it'll be intriguing to see how he handles that. To talk about the style of coaching and how that might mesh, I think, again, there are some positives to take from it, because Andy Murray's game is very similar in style to Novak's game. Now, maybe not as much anymore, but if you were to go and dial back maybe till pre 2019, potentially, their game styles were extremely similar. And this is no offense to Andy, but I think Novak's style was very similar, but he just did everything, well, maybe not everything, but most things slightly better than Andy. And that's why, of course, he's won the Grand Slams. He's won, and maybe Andy has only won three. So, and I want to say only, by the way, that's still like a Hall of Fame career that he's had. But, Novak winning 24 slams is just phenomenal. So, yeah, I mean, he's going to give and be able to give a lot of insight into how Novak's playing. He's obviously played against him so many times, so he will know when Novak's playing well, when he's not playing well, the types of patterns of play. What should he be doing? What should he not be doing? I'm sure he would have studied Novak countless times with his team. And what's also going to be interesting, I think, is a really positive thing, is that there's been a coaching change, of course. So in 2024, they had on-court coaching introduced, and now they're going to have on-court coaching introduced still, so it'll still be there. So let me rephrase that: on-court coaching will still be there, but they have the added layer of added tech layer, you could say, that means that players are able to receive real-time analytics from their team, so data, real-time data from their team in between, I think it's changeovers, or in between games. So that is really interesting. And Murray, from my understanding, and I could be wrong, but from what I've read and what I've heard, is very much in tune with the data side of things. He's quite a big, I wouldn't say just believer, but I think he's definitely an advocate for using data analytics and trying to really delve into the numbers and how that can translate onto court and how it can assist you, or help improve your game as a player. So that's going to be really interesting to see how he leverages that extra layer to on-court coaching that's been introduced, and whether he will leverage it as much as maybe I think he will. And also, how receptive will Novak be to it? Because I imagine he is also someone that's very analytical. How receptive is he going to be to that information, and how much is he going to listen to Andy, especially initially? It'll be interesting to see, right? I'm intrigued to see how the working relationship, plays out. How does it look on court? And then, for me, I think what's really interesting is that Murray has one of the best tennis IQs that I've seen. His tennis brain is phenomenal. And Novak, of course, is going to be in that same ilk, right? Of course. So we're going to have two of the greatest minds that tennis have ever seen, I would say, in terms of player minds, talking about tennis, really breaking it down. And I imagine Murray's going to be able to add some value to Novak when it comes to not just maybe breaking down the game of tennis and maybe looking at things in a different manner, but I think actually, when we were talking about it previously, when it comes to players, how to approach different players, how, what patterns of play to utilize, what not to utilize. Novak's getting older, so Murray will know that, and of course, with Murray who's getting older, he will know the way that Novak should be playing, and it's just he'll be looking to maximize, I think, Novak's toolkit to ensure that Novak is not having to play super long matches, super long rallies, and get into wars of attrition with a lot of the opponents. He will want to try and make sure that Novak's playing as many short free points as possible, right? That's going to be, I think, one of the biggest things. And what's interesting about that is that, of course, Murray has never really been that type of player, but he has the tennis brain to know how to approach, I think, matches in that manner. And he would have known, after he had his hip surgery, that he needs to play more aggressive. And we could see he was trying to at times, but I think his body failed him. Where Novak, of course, has the, where there's where Novak's very different is that he hasn't had that terrible injury. His body seems in tip-top shape still. It's just age is catching up to him slightly. He's not maybe the quickest guy on tour like he was before, or the best defender that he had on tour before. So, things have changed in that respect. So it means that he has to adjust the way that he plays slightly. His serve is bulked up. He comes to the net more. He goes for more on the forehand sometimes. He's trying to press people more and trying to pressure them rather than maybe just killing them solely with depth or looking for the error. There's been a shift in his attitude to matches, and that's only been a positive thing. And that's why he's been so successful in his career, because he's continually adapted throughout his whole career. More so than any other player at the top of the game, more so than Nadal, more so than Federer, more so than Murray. All of these players, he has been the one that has continually improved and adapted his game, and it's and it's bore, you know, is bore fruit that he could only imagine, I would say, right? So it's been a phenomenal career that Novak's had. So it'll be interesting to see how Andy can add to that. Now, the one thing I will say is that I think at this stage of his career, Novak doesn't really need a coach. And when I say that, what I'm trying to say is, and again, I could be wrong on this, but he's at that age where I feel like he's not going to play a full calendar. We know that. He probably knows what works and doesn't work for him in terms of drills, in terms of preparation, in terms of recovery, etc. He's got to that stage of his career, right? He's towards the back end of it now. He's won so many matches, etc. He would have picked the best practices from each coach he's had and then made sure to implement those going forward, right? He would have continually done that, knowing Novak. Now for Murray, he's going to come in, and it's not maybe going to be about, okay, let's look at overhauling your diet, right? Because we know Novak's already done that with the gluten free and completely overhauled his whole diet. It's probably not going to be about conditioning. It's going to be about adding value when it comes to the tennis side of things, tactically, maybe player by player specific tactics, and also trying to leverage, as I said, the data analytics side of things. But really, he doesn't need to be super full on, I don't think, with Novak. And I don't think it will be that type of coach player relationship. Now, where this could potentially get tricky is that and Murray is very, very strong willed, as is Novak, I imagine there's going to be quite a few instances, because it always happens, right? In any coach player relationship where the coach really wants to drive home a point. And Murray thinks this is exactly the way that we should be doing it. It'll be interesting to see, and I'm sure we'll see it on court as well, and in press conferences, when Murray gets to a point where he feels like, okay, I really need Novak to do this. This is the right way to do it. I am adamant that this is, for example, the tactic we need to be utilizing in this matchup. We need to be utilizing this pattern of play. Whether Novak, if say he doesn't quite agree with him, will he trust him and say, okay, no, you know what? I trust you though. So I'm gonna do what you're saying. Let's go with it. Or is he going to say, you know what? Don't quite think that's right for me. So I'm going to listen to what you're saying, but I'm not going to take it on board in this instance. And I'm going to play the way that I think I should be playing in this match. Because there is a lot of respect there. But at the end of the day, Novak's the one holding the racket. And at the end of the day, he is the one that's won 24 Grand Slams. There's not really many people, or anyone, I would say, in tennis that can sit there and tell him this is the way that you should be doing it. And in his mind, he can think, yeah, you're more qualified than me. Now, especially if it's an ex-player. I think if it's a coach, if it's a coach who's won 30 Grand Slams and multiple players or whatever, then maybe they can say that, and potentially he will listen. But I do think that Novak, with Goran, and even I felt with Goran that at times Goran would be telling him stuff, and Novak might not necessarily be particularly receptive to it. I'm sure he was off court, and I'm sure, generally speaking, he was. But on court, there were moments where it felt like maybe he wasn't being. So I wonder how vocal Murray will be in those instances, and then also how receptive Djokovic will be to it. Will he be more respectful, and he will take it on board because of the rivalry they've had, because Murray is so recent and current, and he'll know, look, okay, yeah, Murray's been studying the game only until a few months back, so he knows everything that's going on right now on tour. Or will it be a case of, actually, because we've got familiarity, I probably think I can just say no to you and it'll be fine, and I don't think I'll get pulled up on it. So I think that's going to be the most interesting thing for me, in terms of things to potentially look out for that could go a bit pear shaped. But generally speaking, I think this, I wouldn't say it's a match made in heaven, but I think it's a really, really shrewd bit of business, I would say. And maybe not business, but shrewd bit of, or shrewd addition anyway, to the team from Novak. And, interesting that, of course, Murray is going to be doing, it would have been, for me, I think it would have made more sense if Novak had brought in a head coach, and then Murray would have come in as, say, an assistant coach, or an advisor or consultant or something, along those lines with the team, and kind of gone with the team and travel with the team in that respect. It doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. It looks like he will be the head honcho, and I could be wrong, but that's what it seems. So I'm very, very interested to see whether this goes beyond the Australian Open. I imagine it's not just going to be result dependent. It's going to be more about how the two gel during the period before the Australian Open, during the Australian Open. Do they both feel like it's beneficial for them both going forward? Because Murray's got kids, he's got a family. If Murray doesn't feel like it's beneficial to him to travel throughout the whole year with Novak, then I'm sure he will be, he will definitely put his hand up and say, "Look, this isn't working for me." And similarly, Djokovic will do the same. So it'll be interesting to see whether it does work, and whether we will see any notable changes with Djokovic's game. Not sure that we will, but there's a lot of anticipation around this link up, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing how it all pans out. So let me know in the comment section below what you think of this matchup. Are you excited to see Andy Murray coach Novak? Do you think it's a bad move, and if so, why? Guys, remember to hit that like button, do subscribe if you're new, and do leave a rating or review if you're listening on a podcast platform. Thanks, guys. See you soon.